Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy by TrustArc. Please welcome our hosts, Paul Breitbarth and Kay Royal.
When you are stuck at home for many weeks, chances are that, like me, you have downloaded one or more gaming apps on your phone or even purchased a game console for your living room. Games are hot. But games are also great sources of data collection from all corners of the world and all levels of society. What kind of data are collected? How are they used? Is it all transparent? And of course, how do we tell the children? And even more importantly, how do we protect the children? That and more in today's podcast. My name is Paul Breitbarth.
And I'm Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. This episode I'm very excited about, which my listeners know I'm excited about every single episode we do because I'm a privacy geek. But I am bringing two very special guests today to talk about a very, very hot topic. So we have Ben Siegel with Privacy Ref here in the United States, and we have Lena. I'm going to brutalize this.
Kusniemi.
Kusiemi?
Very good.
Okay, beautiful. Of Legal Oi, and in her past, she has been with a gaming company, and she has a lot of experience with this. So both of them are highly eminent professionals, very well known in the privacy world, excellent reputations. I just wanted to get the good bio stuff out of the way because here's the good part. Here's your unexpected personal question. Lena, we're going to come to you first. If you could add 1 hour to your day, what would you do with it?
Go dancing.
Good answer.
Love it. Love it. Ben, what about you?
Well, that's good exercise. I'd actually, I have it behind me in this, what looks like a briefcase. It's actually a wooden case. That's my painting. I paint miniatures to play Dungeons and Dragons with. So I've got all my paint and my brushes back there. And I showed Paul earlier, I'm painting some skeletons with my son currently. So, yeah.
That is fantastic. And I think you and I spoke about this before because my brother paints miniatures as well. That's cool. Paul, what about you? What would you do? Are you going go-go dancing with Lena?
No, I don't think dancing is a good idea for me. But
we talked about this last week, Paul.
I know, and I'm still not good at dancing. I haven't learned in this week. Maybe I split the time in two or do something every other day. But there is a stack of books that is about the size of my house that I should still read. So that should be part of it. And I'd love to spend more time on cooking.
I love it. I have no idea what I would do with an extra hour. I'd probably merely do the same things I'm doing now.
Work.
I just have 1 more hour in the day. Yeah, kind of stinks. Maybe I would work on my PhD dissertation that if I don't get it done this year, I think they're kicking me out. It's about GDPR in U.S. public universities, so I need to get my butt in gear. Okay, beautiful. With that, Paul, I am going to turn it over to you if you would like to kick us off with the first question.
Sure. Well, let's start on the legal side, because I'm curious with all the new legislation that we've seen lately. Of course, GDPR and CCPA coming into force, COPPA in the United States, not so new anymore. But with all the legal changes, how does the gaming industry keep up? And maybe, Lena, this is a good question to start you off, since you've dealt with all of this throughout your career, also on a daily basis.
So yes, hi, here's Lena. Yes, I've been working with few game companies, but then also in Finland and in Europe, we have really active gaming association for the game developers. So we try to share this pain, and it has been kind of ongoing for last 20 years. the challenges are being there that because game is kind of everything you have under the sun rolled into one ball. It's kind of has all the features that a movie has, but it also has that interactive elements into it. And this means that for the game companies, it's always been kind of uphill struggle to keep up with very fragmented legislation, not just between the countries, but sometimes even inside the country, because you have a bit different rules when it comes to the content as such. And then for these interactive like features such as chat, for example, and all that. So what the game companies do then, that of course you kind of start with your home turf. You can't really reason that you would not be compliant with the applicable laws in the country where you have headquarters. So that's your starting point. And then many of them have the tactics that when you go to the key market, so then of course you are checking the mandatory ones, because those are something that then you need to deal with. If it's not mandatory, then you take a very brutal approach that it may be that then it's kind of nice to have. But if you need to go to the underlying design and functionalities, it's also the price issue. So in short, it's really, really challenging, but you still need to comply, because nowadays your platforms where you're actually distributing the game are pushing those responsibilities to you. Basically, you cannot submit into the distribution model before you sign up and say that you basically take all the liabilities, that every single feature in your game is compliant. So big companies, of course, are in the better position. If you think about the very large ones, something like Blizzard, Activision, or such, even they have a quite modest legal departments compared to some like other technology groups. Once when you go to European turf, and specifically Scandinavia, we always be skimpy with lawyers. So you may not have more than 2-4 people actually responsible for the entire global setup. Because games are cross-border by nature. Once you submit it, you typically never leave any area out. You can kind of cross those when you're submitting your game to the platform, the territories, your user of choice is worldwide. So you do what you can, you try to lean on the outside help. And of course, these associations do help, that you may have a chance to actually talk with the local authorities.
Ben, anything to add to this?
Yeah, first, that's a great answer that Lena provided. I would also add that what you're finding nowadays is even games that are traditionally, talking about video games specifically, games that are traditionally very single player, games of this nature, you're still actually having a large online community, a large online presence. So as Lena was mentioning, the distribution model where companies are taking responsibility, oftentimes this distribution model, systems like Steam, the EA Play Store, these different systems, you are now interacting with your customers in a new way, possibly collecting more data that is outside the game. And that means that there's more responsibility with regards to privacy law. I actually spoke to someone from Activision Blizzard at the PSR conference last year in Las Vegas, and they mentioned, for example, that all data, including like what character in World of Warcraft, what sword your guy is using, or what spells he uses, is personal information, or what that character is. And I think that's great, right? They're considering all this information personal. It relates to someone, but it's something that you never would have had to consider, 10 or about 20 years ago. Back when online was basically, well, it's your username and that's it. Like it does, nothing else matters.
So what about transparency?
Paul probably knows what I'm going to ask. Are Fortnite dances personal information?
I would say no, except for the Carlton, because that is related specifically to Carlton. Even though I know the court case shot that down, unfortunately.
This is a nice link back to our previous episode of the podcast.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up Fortnite dances for, I don't know, the next 6 or 7 podcasts.
Yeah, oddly enough, I do not play Fortnite, or I really don't play a lot of that stuff. But I keep up with the memes, as it were. With regards to transparency, though, as you mentioned, Paul, I think there's a lot of companies need to be more transparent with regards to what data they collect. But the issue is two-sided. Obviously, companies need to tell people what they're doing, what data they're using, how they're using it. But people actually have to read the privacy notice. A great example of this outside of just video games is sort of the mobile apps, things like alternate or augmented reality. So Pokemon Go came out a couple years ago, about 5 years ago. No one reads privacy notices, right? It's very few people, maybe 20% of people actually read the notice. And I take some time usually to go on Reddit and look at what people say about things on like the legal advice column. But I was playing Pokemon Go and someone was there complaining that their privacy notice says, they use all your data, they sell it. And I explained to them that, well, yeah, they sell it on the definition to CCPA, which is just that they provide the data to someone else for any kind of consideration, monetary or otherwise. And that the notice was pretty bog standard for what it says in the industry, right? Oh, we share your data with these third parties for processing. We may track these things. If you don't want us to track them, you have to let us know or you can't use the app. It's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that would shock you. So people need to read the notice and understand it. So there's a level of education and awareness, and then companies need to also provide that information in a clear, understandable manner.
Yeah, but what about kids? And I don't mean the really, really young kids, although we can talk about those as well. But even just teenagers, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, heck, let's go to young college, the 21-year-olds. They don't understand what they're reading. And even when companies go to the extent of making sure that it's in user-friendly language, people should really aim for an 8th grade reading level at minimum, maybe go down to 5th grade if English is a second language, kind of like, again, I'm from Mississippi, you might need to go down to a 5th grade reading level. But even if they can understand the words, they don't understand the import. How do you approach that? Or how should a company approach that? Lena?
Well, yes, that has always been kind of uphill struggle, even though I have to say here that we had done a few studies in Nordics for teenagers, etc. And actually the outcome was that parents do not understand what I mean, teenagers were saying that the parents are super embarrassing. They don't know how to use social media and they are like embarrassment for the whole family. And that may be true. They say that actually, if you think about the vocabulary around technology thing, you could argue that sometimes maybe the teenagers are more savvy than the parents to understand what is actually happening there in the background. But of course, you can't rely on that. So that information is really, really difficult. And in Europe, there has been some cooperation between like UNICEF and Save the Children with the local units, also trying to kind of understand that what would be the level of communication that it would be kind of understandable in both ends. Well, as a lawyer, you know that it's always the challenge. I mean, people just keep using language in the different way, and they assume a lot. We love to get a support for our pre-existing ideas when we are reading. So, oh, yeah, that's that, or no, it's not that. If something really clashes with our pre-understanding, it's really challenging, specifically on the mobile. You have a very small screen to give that information and actually get that attention. So here, of course, I mean, in the Europe, if you think about the GDPR, the whole idea was that I don't have to read the notice because there's a minimum standard anyway. So I can kind of rely on that. But as for the kids, there have been a lot of tools. One thing was my pet peeve is all the information available for parents that they don't read. There are so many tools and ways and tip corners and you name it with what we call teleoperators like carriers websites who actually have a large distribution platform for any kind of content and games and family entertainment. The devices have really sophisticated tools how you can segregate different kind of apps from each other, how parents could pre-check, because that's a problem. I mean, you give that smartphone into the hands of the kid and you think that, oh, fantastic, now they are not going to bother me for next few hours. And the problem is that it's similar. I use always, Paul knows that I'm very famous for really, really bad analogs. And I used to say that I think it's like traffic. If you think how regulated traffic is, we have zebra crossings, we have traffic lights, we have fines, we have police patrolling there. Nobody in their right mind would put 5 years out and say, see you at the shopping mall and think that they could make it. even though it's regulated. So in the end, I think now I can say it. I couldn't say it when I was working for game companies because I can't blame the customers. But now I can say, hey, parents, you need to teach your kids how to use it, just like going out the traffic. Go together with your kid, open that device together, see what are the settings, supervise a bit what's happening there. You will learn, your kid will learn, and hopefully you will have an atmosphere where it's okay to flag when you see something nasty.
So Ben, is that what you are doing with your kid when you're gaming together?
You better believe it. So I'm in an interesting position as a millennial. So born in the late 80s, I grew up obviously with the old Nintendo.
Oh my God, my kids are younger than you.
Yeah.
Game Boy.
So the original gray brick Game Boy, yeah, stuff like that. And a lot of those games, parents just assumed like, it's for kids, it's fine, right? It's, Legend of Zelda, Mario, there's no violence. But obviously, as we've gotten, games have developed and they've gotten better, there's been more violence. So even before we get to privacy, I used to work at like a game retailer in college, and kids would just come in and be like, yeah, Mom, I want this game. And the parent would just throw it up on the table, and I'd be like, so this game's rated M for mature, for sexual content, graphic violence, drug references. And the parent's like, no, you're not getting this. And they're like, well, my friend plays this. Well, I'm not your friend's mom, right?
I've heard that.
So for kids, I think the issue isn't, first to Lena's point, yes, parents need to be involved with what their kids are playing. So like with my son, I mentioned, right, we play like Minecraft Dungeons together. I know what we're doing. We play it offline. We're not doing anything online. I'm not worried about his data being used, but just in general, I know what games he is playing, and I don't let him play violent stuff, right? I think the most violent game he plays is like Minecraft. And even there, I'm just like, I turn off all the monsters. So he's just building stuff. Great. For teenagers, though, for young adults, I just don't think they care, right? It's you get to the point where it's, well, I want to play Call of Duty, right? I want to play Battlefield Warzone. I want to play whatever. And it pops up the EULA, the terms of service, the privacy notice, and they just click, yep, agree, scroll to the bottom, click, agree, yeah, I don't want to read this, whatever. Because they just want to
I just want to play.
They don't care, right? They just want to play Fortnite. So they're going to play Fortnite because they don't care about the person. Yes, correct. They don't want to waste.
Yeah, we used to say in the game industry that the best way to market any game for preteens is to put the age limit to 16. Yep. Because that's when you really want to do it. Because hey, nobody wants to be a lame and play like games that, okay, this is recommended for 10 years old. Say, hey, I'm in when you attend. No, you want to play what the bigger boys and girls are playing. So that's really the attractive thing. So that's like a double-edged sword with any kind of age.
Absolutely.
And disclaimer that I have not provided, I don't game.
That's fine.
I'm sorry.
I might.
You never have?
I can't
disagree.
say never. I tried it. I'm from the age of when Atari came out and you could play Centipede.
The 26 or the 5200? This is the important question.
Oh, the early version. I never memorized the Pac-Man game. Let's just be honest. I am not a gamer. My husband is, and most of my friends are because they're all geeks. So last week, I actually had to look up what the heck a Fortnite dance was. And you're throwing out names of games here that some of them I've heard of. Minecraft I've heard of, but I can't tell you what kind of game it is. And Lena, you said this, the parents don't care or they don't know. What do you recommend? Like I said, my kids are in their late 20s. What do you recommend for a parent who doesn't game, who has no clue what any of these things do?
Like I said, this is a great opportunity, to get to know that world of games with your kids, because there are like so many more than like your shooting and strategic games. They're like philosophical games. There are things where you're floating above the meadows with the lovely music and collecting flowers or butterflies. They just, I think, now I'm not sure about the figure, but I think on average, every single day, there are about 200 new games coming to the platforms. So there's you have the puzzle, you have the tic-tac-toes, and you have the Scrabble kind of word games, and you have this and that, things where you have to find something in the room, as quickly as possible to find the socks and the briefcase, whatever. So, I mean, there's a vast variety, and I think it would also open for the kids if you would go and explore it yourself. The problem is where you find it. But I have to say that I've been a horrible mother as well. I used to work for Remedy when the Max Payne was launched, 2001. And of course, I got the special DVD package to home. And then my daughters were very young because they were born in early 90s. And of course, I had been involved to a certain extent because I just arrived to the company when it was in a final stretch. But I didn't know how damn violent it was. And then my 11-year-old older girl comes to the kids and says, "Oh, mother, I need something to drink. I'm all exhausted because I've been shooting rats with shotgun in New York Metro for hours." And I'm kind of, what the heck is going there? Shame on me. I wasn't there next to her. I was like, "Hey, Fantastics is playing something and I'm off the hook for a few hours." So my recommendation is that have an open mind. Don't think that everything is just like World War II or some like really extremely violent rip-off game. Go and find, there may be something that you actually find amusing, something that can be even, you might discover literally new world.
Let your kids play Minecraft. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with Lena's earlier point that kids want to play the stuff for older kids, it's more violent. That might be true. I might also just be a giant nerd and I like playing single player RPGs, stuff like Final Fantasy or very Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff.
Okay, hold on. RPGs, role-playing
game. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically based off Dungeons and Dragons, which is all based off of Tolkien fantasy and things like that.
Which has been around for a long time.
For a very long time, yes. So essentially, with regards to what you're picking for your kids, it's definitely a good idea to be involved. I know for a fact that most of the games I played growing up were more like sports games. Like, there's nothing wrong with playing Madden or like NBA Jam on the Sega Genesis. Nowadays, there's a lot more stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that is really good that's a bit more thought-provoking. I know Minecraft, like I keep mentioning it, but it is kind of fun to just go around and explore and build stuff and, let your kid's not going to do anything crazy. And that's good. And also it's offline. Once you get online is when you really get into the higher risk, because now you're talking about the unknown interaction with random people on the internet. And the internet has this great tendency to kind of ruin everything once it touches it.
And thank you so much for segueing into that nicely, because otherwise I was just going to interrupt and go there. So there is a lot of information out there, and there's starting to become a lot more awareness of the risk to children through online gaming, through the chats, and through pedophiles grooming them. And this isn't a paranoia thing that parents come up with. It actually happens. And so there was an article that I had found, and this is from, and we'll put a link to the article below. But in here, let's see, the first threat, okay, there's been some success in catching perpetrators. There was a guy who was sentenced to prison for introducing or coercing an 11-year-old girl into producing child pornography after meeting her through an online game. Another one who solicited explicit imagery from 3 boys because he posed as a teenager in Minecraft and League of Legends. Not that I'm trying to say the games are at fault here, but these are what pedophiles do. They go online, they blackmail, they solicit these types of images, and the kids are abused, and they don't understand that they're being abused, and they don't know who to tell. And some of this can also cross over to revenge pornography, things along this line. It's all a huge issue. So the Justice Department here in the U.S. identified sextortion as by far the most significantly growing threat to children. Thoughts?
Well, I could say that I have, yes. For example, it kind of opened my eyes when I was in a conference maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we have the Interpol and Europol guys who are actually on daily basis doing work with child molesters, and it is a very gruesome world. The challenge here is that from the game developer's perspective, having like chat and interaction is a fantastic feature, because now you can kind of create groups and you can make strategy and you can chat with people. I mean, from the like positive side, when you are looking the world kind of maybe little through rose-colored glasses, it looks fantastic. The problem is that once when you have access, everybody has an access.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that game chat, it's just like like our real world outside, except that you are now in the totally dark room, so I can't see who's talking to me, and even that voice is distorted. So I can't have any clue with whom I'm talking with. You may have a wrong name, you may not be a male or female, I don't know your age. And that's what makes it very vulnerable place, because we have an illusion that we are somehow in isolation and a safe place, because I may be sitting in my home, in my own room, but still I'm out there with all these adults. The monitoring, the challenge is, first of all, is the practicality, and the second is the cost. If you have a small game company and now you want to have this lovely new game, and first thing nowadays, because the gamers want to have a chat there, I want to interact with other gamers. Now the problem is here that how am I going to supervise those chats? If you have a software, for example, that very, like in the rudimental way, tries to identify certain listed words, people are super innovative, so they can get around those. And still, I remember, as for example, Rovio was going to have a cute feature. That's what the guys told me. I mean, they never see the evil in this world, those lovely game developers. Then comes the lawyer and spoils everything. Basically, the idea was that they were the super cute birds, and they wanted to give a possibility for people to make a dialogue for them. And you would write the words, they would actually speak them, and you would create your own mini plays there. This sounds lovely. My first question was that, okay, what about the swear words? Yeah, we have a list of those. I said, in how many languages? They had like 8, what was quite a lot, but that's not enough. Next was here that I said that, okay, give it to me. And because I have a very dirty imagination, it took me maybe 2 minutes to make absolutely horrendous discussion between those birds without using any of the words on the list. Because it's so much also about the context, so that's not sufficient. And now you need maybe human eyes. So some games you're having flagging system that if I feel uncomfortable, but that is now relying on the reactions of that gamer. And if you are young and you don't want to appear as too shy or something, that's a problem. You go along before you flag something that now I'm feeling super uncomfortable. And having those human eyes 24/7 is a super high cost.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a really, really a big challenge, how to stop that, because game companies really want to uproot those people away from there, because it's bad for everything, because they want to have a nice entertainment, nice interactivity. And how are you going to stop those people coming in and pretending to be something else that they are? It's a big challenge.
Even beyond what Lena said, so the example with Minecraft in that article, so that there's a real challenge because Microsoft and Mojang, who own Minecraft, they're just selling you a license to play Minecraft, and online Minecraft isn't run on some sort of official server from Microsoft, as far as I know. It's run on servers hosted by people that just happen to want to host a server. Now there are terms of service that they have listed. A good example is like you can't sell in-game items on your server for real-world money. You can't make money off of reselling the game itself or the content in the game, because that's Microsoft's. That's what they want to do. Microsoft can't be held responsible for someone who runs a server and then uses that server to prey on children. And that's the real difficulty, is reining that in. Another example, I think, from that same article was there's a chat application called Discord. I use it myself for a number of different reasons, to play games with my friends, to just to chat with people, or chat with communities that are specific to a particular game. Most games these days will have a Discord channel that's just made by fans and it'll run, but people will post whatever they want. And there is, as Lena mentioned, a cost to moderation. And it gets very, very difficult. It gets very, very costly if you want to have 24/7 people moderating every single message, every single chat that gets put on there. It's difficult to do on such a massive scale. And I'd mention, in addition to that, I'd actually done some work this past year for a dating company. They have an online application, and they had a pretty good approach, which was that they detect a lot of that language, a lot of those potential images using AI or machine learning to try and identify potentially malicious or harmful content. and it automatically escalates it to be reviewed. And they've outsourced that to another company that basically these people are trained to review the content, understand the context.
That sounds like a good approach.
And it is a pretty good approach. Obviously, things get through the cracks. Things, can be false positives or false negatives. But it's a real challenge. And for game companies, it's sort of something that comes up second, unfortunately, right? They want to make money, and sometimes they want to make a good game too, but they want to make money first. And the bottom line tends to become the number one thing, whereas the toxicity of a community or the way people act is a secondary concern.
Well, and with 200 new games appearing every single day, or numbers in that region, it is also almost impossible to keep that up on an ongoing basis. That would involve so many millions of people just for the moderation. That is almost impossible.
I mean, think of it this way: if you're an independent developer, a studio of maybe one or two people, and you decide to run a Discord server, or you make a new game, and suddenly your game has a very minor online component, and it's being used to prey on children or people who play your game, you're a two-person company. How are you going to possibly scale up to deal with that potential issue? And it can be a real challenge. And you're already talking about, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars right away.
Which a lot of these game creators don't have.
Right. These smaller companies, larger companies obviously are more apt to deal with this and more able to deal with this.
Yeah, what would be a way out? Would it be saying to kids under a certain age, you can only play games that are not connected to the internet? Would that even work in today's day and age?
I mean, so not to point fingers, but ask the pornography industry, right? There's all these websites that say, hey, are you 18? And every 14-year-old boy I know has always been like, you better believe I'm 18.
Right.
Some of them were born in 1906 because that's just the lowest number that defaults to, and they scroll all the way to the bottom of it or whatever. So it's like, yeah, I'm 114 years old and I want to go to this porn website. And they go, all right, well, you lived through 2 world wars, so sure, it's all
At
you.
114, you might deserve to.
I mean, I guess it's difficult to simply say, well, if you're 13, you can't play games online. Because what if they live with an older brother, right? Oh, your older brother's 18. Oh yeah, I'm on my older brother's account. I'm allowed to play older games online now. And unfortunately, it's sort of the cookie jar thing, right? Like you can put the cookie jar there, you can put the rules in place, but people are still going to be like, well, I want a cookie, so I'm going to sneak in and grab one when I'm not supposed to.
And then Lena, you were about to say something about the AI, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that looks promising, let's put it that way, that you could have that kind of a machine learning algorithm that could, like in a new way, combine, because now it's been like a single words or something what is not efficient enough. I can see, but I don't think, well, yet, let's see where we are in 10 years, that it would totally be at the same level as somebody being there with you. But what some like game companies, because this is actually, some of them are taking this very seriously, because it's that if you have that kind of scandal, it may mean, and it has meant, that you really lose gamers, and the parents get very angry. And you don't want to end up in the headlines that you are totally like negligent, that you don't do anything. What some have done, but this doesn't work. It depends what kind of game is it, what makes sense. But if you're having like smaller groups, like tribes or something, there typically this isn't that much dilemma, because I mean, when you are talking with one-to-one, there's always that personal threshold if I'm going to complain or not. But when you have a larger group and somebody starts behaving creepily, it's much more probable that one of them will flag that. And you know that they are monitoring something, that you can say there's somebody getting really creepy, and then they can go back and check that person's account and how they've been behaving, and they probably will ban them, either for short period or for good if it's a creepy person. So they say that seems to be working. But if you allow one-to-one chat, that's always a huge risk.
So one simple rule may be don't allow one-to-one chats.
Yeah, but like I said, then there may be games that doesn't really work if the whole idea is there that let's like work in couples, or that you have that interaction. Now, shame on me. I haven't been playing myself World of Warcraft. That was a huge hit in my home. That whether it's always, I think there's a possibility to have one-to-one, and that has one of the like really massively popular game. And there it would be a dilemma that I can't talk between you because now I'm planning with you to raid, let's say, Paul's home. So I don't want him to be involved because it's going to be surprise attack. Mm-hmm. So this means that sometimes it just doesn't make sense to have that kind of limitation.
With the World of Warcraft example, it's really good. So the game itself obviously has a number of chat channels. I used to play myself, Lena, so I totally know where you're coming from. Mm-hmm. That said, I got.
But he has to explain it to me.
I got a lot of work done in college, I promise. So basically, there's the normal chat channels that are open where your character can type. So it's called Say, which is basically in the local area around your character in the world. People can see what you're saying. But there's channels for the different zone your character's in. So if they're in a particular area of the game, they can hear everyone that's chatting there. If they're in a major city in the game, they can talk to that. There's a trade channel where people are trading things. All of that. Then there's your guild. Your guild has a guild chat. If you're in a party with different people, there's a party chat. And then there's whispers, which are one-to-one, right? Only you can see them. Now, luckily, I think Warcraft actually had a lot of really good functionality where you could block it. There were controls for children where you could stop people from talking to them if you didn't want them to, which is great. You can just close out all the voice channels if you don't want them talking to people. But that said, the issue with sort of getting rid of one-to-one chat is that there's almost always a way. If gamers are one thing, it is they are very, very resourceful, and they will find a way around anything you give them. That is the thing that defines them. If you say, well, we're banning one-to-one chats, they will find a way to like include semaphore or to use smoke signals. They will find a way to talk to each other one-to-one.
The easiest way to get people to create something is to tell them they can't do it.
Correct.
And I think that's for all communications. That's probably true. I recall watching a Norwegian TV show called Occupied. It's a thriller series about a fictitious future Norway occupied by Russia, and the resistance movement in Norway to reinstall the prime minister. And part of that series is actually the politicians and the resistance communicating with each other through a game like World of Warcraft, the audio functionality, to be able to discuss drop-offs of materials and of weapons and things like that. So it also in fiction, it is already clear that the gaming the non-official use of games has made its way.
But if I want to go back to something we were talking about, the AI for chats and identifying. If they use that tool, then wouldn't they need to disclaim in their privacy notice? Isn't that kind of creating a profile of a person if they're trying to identify suspicious or questionable actions by a particular gamer?
Well, so I would look at GDPR as the best example of this. So first thing that comes to mind is, and this is my nerdy part coming out. So this is definitely Article 22, right? This is the automatic processing of someone's information. Anytime you do that, escalation to a human review is important. Right. If you set up a keyword that if someone uses a particular language, that's flagged, you want someone to review it to make sure that it requires the appropriate action. For building a profile, I don't necessarily think it is building a profile of a person, because you're looking at a single action and you're saying, for example, they use the word kill. So the program, because if they're saying, oh, go kill those monsters over there, obviously that's fine context. If they type, I'm going to kill you, there's context there that needs to be reviewed. Maybe they were having an argument or they were joking. And, there's all these things that need to be looked at from a human perspective to understand why did the person say that. If they've determined that this is like a serious threat against this person's safety, now what they're doing is, it's not a profile. They've said at this single point, we've determined you've done something that's against our terms of service or against the rules. And so we're going to take action, whether that's alerting the authorities, banning their account, that's up to them. And there's a number of different steps to take. And just to get the one more article in there, right, we can look at Article 6. It definitely falls under legitimate interest because you're looking out for the safety of an individual. You're trying to prevent them from suffering from harm. And clearly, there's a balance of interests with regards to the processing done by the company and the information coming from that data subject. So there's a lot there, but I don't know about profile, but it definitely strikes me as automated processing.
Yes, and I would say that you can mitigate a lot. I mean, for example, in what you just said, if you can see that somebody's, I'm going to kill the monster, don't save that data. You could be deleting as you go. I mean, then you wouldn't be like collecting and storing that. If somebody keeps saying that they are going to kill everybody, I mean, then you have also kind of reason to maybe store that. But then you would be actually collecting and storing much less data, and only that you can claim as relevant, and keep like reviewing that on regular basis. So then you would have a good reasoning that you do what you see that you need to, but you do not excessively start collecting or making profiles on gamers just for the fun of it.
Data minimization, for sure. Agree on that one.
So maybe to wrap up, let's talk money a bit, because gaming is big business. A lot of these games are either already an initial purchase, or there are in-app purchases that or subscription models that you then forget to unsubscribe from. So you keep paying. Well, this is all from own experience. I do game occasionally when I have to.
I have my own strong feelings about microtransactions. Don't worry, Paul.
So yeah, that's the microtransactions. But then at the same time, if you look at these games, and there is a study from Fordham University from a while back that actually spells it out. They found that all games not only collect the data that you would expect, but also location data, and they contain dozens and dozens of trackers for marketing that are shared with affiliates, with advertising platforms, and more. Why would that even be necessary, apart, of course, from making even more money? But if you are already paying for the game and have micropayments, why then also all the tracking?
I mean, companies want to make money. I don't want to call out any particular organization, but there are definitely instances lately where organizations take actions that strike you as just very strange. I guess there's one I can call out, which was EA when they released Battlefront 2. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is this big deal, huge licensed Star Wars game. Everyone was very excited for it. The original Star Wars Battlefront was like really well received. And basically they came out with everyone's favorite loot crates, which is, for those who don't know, essentially is in-game you get randomized little crates with, upgrades for your characters or different items, but it's all randomized. Now, of course, you unlock these really, really slowly through playing the game, or you can give them $50 and they'll give you a whole bunch of loot crates. And people were upset about that. But then the straw that broke the camel's back was that they locked Darth Vader, who is like, if you're a Star Wars person,
I do know who Darth Vader is.
I'm so glad I don't have to explain who Darth Vader is.
I actually cosplay Padme, so okay.
I mean, we'll get to that later.
Kay knows her loot crates. Let's keep it at that.
Basically, with that, it was just corporate greed, right? Like you can play this game for something like, I think someone determined that if you played the game for 40 hours straight, you could unlock Darth Vader. It would take you 40 hours of time, which is a lot to unlock a single character.
Right.
But then you have to go through and unlock Luke Skywalker, unlock, like Darth Maul, unlock all the characters you want to do. It's, companies are incentivized to make money. So they're going to say, well, listen, you can give us $4 right now and you can unlock Darth Vader and get the special, super cool Darth Vader skin where he's white instead of black, or he's pink even, which, they'll do whatever you want. If they can make money, they'll do it. This, of course, all led to the most downvoted Reddit post in the history of Reddit. I think it got like 700,000 downvotes because they told gamers that they wanted them to have a quote unquote sense of pride and accomplishment playing the game for 40 hours to unlock Darth Vader, when most people just want to play Darth Vader, right? So with regards to money, these companies, they're tracking you, they're selling your data because they want money. And I'm not going to blame them. It's just some of them do it a little bit more overtly than others.
Yeah, but then there are like a lot of, I would say, small game companies honestly do not understand what's happening when they sign up to some of these, I would call them middlemen, not to point any fingers here. I mean, you think you need them for certain functionalities, and unless you really start asking nasty questions, they are not going to tell you what actually does happen when you connect. that came to those their APIs, and there might be some like really nasty surprises there. Because some companies thought that, well, I'm not going to do, let's say, behavioral advertising, but it's a bit uphill work. Here, by the way, what is I find a bit, how would I say, funny or ironic is that I used to be really, really involved with COPPA in USA. And then when it came 2013, so I remember being in myself in telcos all June, trying to go through the advertising networks and find out who we can continue cooperation with and who we need to just say that hello, goodbye. This was it. We just can't work with you because your functionalities will mean that we will be in breach of COPPA and we will end up having a nice little discussion with the Federal Trade Commission. And to my surprise, very many US-based companies had parallel offerings because they knew they had so large customer base in USA. So they said, okay, we hear you. We had like few other companies. So if you can do this, here's the plan B. So we will just have this that you are under COPPA and then certain functionalities are turned off. Fantastic. Now comes GDPR, because in the Europe people were still living like no tomorrow because there was no enforcement, even though the rules were roughly the same. Now, to my surprise, I have few European companies and I have the discussion with exactly the same gang who now say this can't be done. And I said, sorry, guys, I had the discussion with you 2013, it was doable, so don't tell me now you can't do it. And that has always been my message for the USA, that if you don't understand GDPR, think about COPPA. And in Europe, we are all under 13. We just don't have the age limit. Same rules, just not for anyone. But you're absolutely right. I mean, some companies do it willingly, some unwillingly, some don't even know what the heck is happening behind those closed doors. Because you need to get everything in place. They have been working in some game companies before. Now they have a startup. They just remember on the back of their head, oh, this is all you needed in order to launch that game. And nobody goes through those questions that, is this really strictly necessary? Does the game function without this? It may or may not.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, both. I have a feeling that we could continue these conversations for many more hours, but I do have to go back to my game not to lose my points. Without kidding, thank you very much for joining us today. And this concludes another episode of Serious Privacy. If you like our series, please do tell your friends and colleagues about us and subscribe in your favorite podcast app. Should you have any questions or suggestions, please reach out to us via seriousprivacy@trustarc.com or via Twitter at @podcastprivacy. You will find Kay on Twitter as Heart of Privacy and myself as EuroPolB. Thank you again for listening to Serious Privacy, and until our next episode, goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No. That's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data, and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.